Welcome to LawXPR, the podcast where we put a spotlight on the latest news coming out of the legal tech industry. This is Bob Ambrogi, and in each sponsored episode of LawXPR, I interview a legal tech company about its latest news and developments. Today we're talking about the launch of LawAnswers AI, a national access to justice legal information assistant developed by the company LawDroid. And joining me to discuss the news is LawDroid's founder and CEO, Tom Martin. Tom, welcome.
Hey, Bob. Pleasure to be here.
Always good to see you. Always good to talk to you. Before we talk about what you've built and launched here, let's talk about why you've built this and what the problem is that you're kind of setting out to help address.
Yeah, happy to talk about that. I mean, I think we've been talking about it for years, right? Like the access to justice gap, you and I both know that every single year we talk about it, how it's either getting larger or maybe slightly better, but it's a recurring issue that, we know that 92% of Americans don't get the kind of legal help that they need. And so it's been a source of frustration, I think, for anyone who's dipped their hand into access to justice. And I just finally wanted to contribute my part to it. To helping.
And I think a couple of the points that you make in your announcement about this product, one is that there are unique aspects to the access to justice problem for people in rural areas. And there is this sort of what you talked about is the missing middle, the people who are not making enough money to afford a lawyer, but maybe making too much money to afford legal aid or some of the other alternatives to them. So I wonder if you could just kind of talk about those two sides of this.
Absolutely. Well, I, through LawDroid, have been extremely fortunate to work with legal aid organizations, courts, state bar associations over the past decade. And through that, the lessons learned has been that ultimately we're providing services through legal aid that ultimately are the same types of services that people in the middle need, right? It's the same kind of service that people that have higher incomes need. So it occurred to me that if you're going to solve for one, why not solve for all? And that is the strongest position, I think, to take, because legal aid has the challenge of funding and trying to get it and the ups and downs of different, political viewpoints about whether or not they should get the money. And so it's always led to this up and down movement in terms of them being able to do their job. And to me, I think if you vertically integrate across these different income levels by providing the same service anyways, then you can have the upside of a highly scalable model and people getting the benefit of that, everyone.
So rather than keep the listeners in further suspense, why don't we talk about what it is that you've launched here, which is LawAnswers AI, but tell us what this is.
Well, I want to emphasize that this is the first step. It is not the perfect thing that's going to solve all problems for everyone, but it is a good start.
I was kind of hoping you'd solved all the problems of the world.
It just seems to be a natural thing that sometimes people feel that, well, it's not perfect. But it's meant to be a good first step in people getting helpful legal information that they need as quickly as possible. And there are ways that you could go and use AI to do that now. You could go onto, let's say, Perplexity, and you can ask, how do I get divorced? The problem with that is that it doesn't key into jurisdiction. It tries to auto-locate you and give you information for where you're at, but that might not be appropriate, as we know. It could be that you were living elsewhere when you were married in a different state. And so we gather jurisdiction information first. We prioritize the sources of information that are provided to bubble up the more reliable sources, and also have a way of synthesizing it in an easy to understand way for most ordinary people that are approaching law for the first time, and it might be scary to them.
It's a chat interface. I played around with it a little bit this morning before we got on this call. I thought it was pretty cool. But as you say, I tried a couple of different Massachusetts queries, since that's where I am. But the first, if you just put in a question, the first thing it does is ask, where are you? What state are you in? What jurisdiction are you in? Because that's pretty critical to providing the right information, right? And as you say, not just sort of a general GPT or something is going to do that.
Absolutely. And even before that, when you have your very first interaction with it, It does have it has a disclosure that you can't escape. You cannot ask a question until you read it and you understand that, it's not a human being. It is a computer that's assisted by AI that's answering your question. And it's trying to do the best it can. So that's made very clear to people using it that they know what they're getting into and they still want to use it. And they go in, but they get highly relevant information that pertains to them.
Yeah. But for all those disclaimers, for the fact that you're providing jurisdiction-specific information, there will be concern among listening to this now or others who hear about this product about the accuracy of the information being provided. We all know about the propensity for hallucinations of generative AI tool. So what do you do? What kinds of guardrails do you have built into this to try and alleviate or prevent that kind of a situation?
So that's definitely a concern. And it's one that guided my construction of this in, I believe, an extremely thoughtful and reliable way, which is that we do prioritize those sources that are the most reliable. So for example, we do a web search. And when we do that web search, we prioritize information from courts, from self-help pages on court pages. We also prioritize legal aid organizations, some of which I've worked with, that have fabulous libraries of legal information at their fingertips, and also lawyers and law firms that have published articles about different legal issues. So those get bubbled up to the top. And we also disallow certain websites from being included. Reddit is specifically, excluded from any of the information that's provided. And so there's that. There's also a focus on privacy, because I think we're the only provider that provides in-browser redaction of personally identifiable information. So that means that kind of sensitive information never hits our servers. It never comes to us because it's redacted within the browser of the user themselves to ensure their privacy and security.
We know, this well from working with legal aid organizations, that a lot of consumers who come to a legal help website, I mean, it's probably a big step often that they even come to a legal help website because they may not even know they have a legal problem, and they get to have gotten that far, I guess, says something. But they don't necessarily know how to phrase their problem in lawyer terms or legal terms. So how can this site help with that kind of a situation?
Well, that's one of the beauties of large language models, right? Is that they're trained on so many diverse types of speech that they're pretty good at understanding the call of the question, even if you say it with ums and, it's just stated in a very non-legal layperson's language, that you could say you could ask it questions in a very ordinary misspelled way and it still understands what you're trying to ask. And you could also go through multiple rounds with it to get, the information you need bit by bit. So I think it empowers people to get the answers they need because they don't have to interface with a lawyer and speak the language of the lawyer. They can just ask for what they want and get it.
Again, my playing around a little bit this morning, I was kind of impressed with its ability to ask follow-up questions where needed. I was trying to be sort of intentionally vague, I'm not a lawyer. I'm gonna put in a question, and it always starts with a jurisdiction question because that's so critical. But it was one query I put in where it kind of gave me an overview answer, but then it said, it would be much more helpful if you could give me this more specific information, and then I could give you a more specific answer. The particular query I put in was more like, tell me what court it's in, or have you received this kind of paper, or, things like that, which I thought was really useful because it does kind of help flesh out what the issue is in a way that somebody might not be thinking about when they come to a site like this.
Absolutely.
I assume that's by design.
Yeah, it's definitely by design. And thankfully, the years of experience I have building these solutions with amazing partners in terms of legal aid and courts and others has given me an understanding, best practices of how to interact with regular people that are just seeking legal information. They don't always say it the right way. Sometimes you have to draw it out of them, and sometimes you need to phrase it in a way that's more approachable for them.
Is the goal of launching this site to connect people with resources? Is it to connect them with help? Is it all of the above? I mean, what should a consumer or a small business person or somebody who comes to this site expect that they might be able to get from it?
Number one, quick and reliable legal information. Number two, potentially connected with legal aid organizations locally that can help them. And just a start, a starting point where they get better educated about what's going on with them. Because as you pointed out, a lot of people don't realize it's even a legal problem. But this way, rather than going through kind of a unorganized, unreliable experience with ChatGPT or Claude, they could go to a place that they know is specific to legal and, get quick and reliable information that they can act on.
Yeah. For a lot of people, their primary connection to the online world is through their mobile device. How is this designed to facilitate use on mobile devices?
So that was from the start. It's mobile responsive to start with. So like it fits perfectly within your, the screen size of a phone, and it essentially works like a chat application. But it is on the roadmap to actually create a mobile application where people can download this and have it on their phone to just, ask questions whenever they need to.
And also you have speech recognition and voice synthesis?
Yeah. And so that's kind of highlighting where we're going. So right now, yeah, you can click on the mic, you could speak to it, you could dictate the question. You don't have to type it in, and it also speaks back to you. And version 2, 2.0 is actually a voice agent that we have where it could actually just speak with you, kind of like a la her, an AI that's embodied that could speak with you. And then version 3 that we have down the road is an actual video avatar that can interact with people and be almost like this, where it's speaking with you and providing you with highly relevant information and guidance.
Well, let's hope consumers aren't falling in love with LawAnswers.ai, at least not in the her sense of the useful application. We haven't at all talked yet about LawDroid, your company. I mean, just want to kind of give us some quick background on who you are and what you do generally?
Yeah, so I founded LawDroid almost 10 years ago now, and it's always been about trying to empower people with technology to handle their legal issues and problems that come up. And so with that, I've partnered with legal aid organizations across the country to build AI solutions to do exactly that, to empower people. And so it seemed like a natural extension of that and the products that we've also created for lawyers to bring this directly to the citizens of the country themselves so they can take power back into their hands and learn about the law and also what they could do about it.
So LawAnswers is available at LawAnswers.ai. Is there anything else that you would like people to know about this?
I would really love if they'd share it with everyone that they know, because it is it's a free service. I think it's extremely helpful. And also that it's coming from the place of just wanting to do good in the world. And I think that if we all, took the opportunities that are available to us now, because AI does make a lot of things possible that weren't previously. And if we take that and we harness it, we could also project a lot of good into the world that'll help a lot of us and raise us all up.
Tom. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show and telling us about this, and congratulations on this launch.
Thanks so much, Bob.
That's it for today's show. Hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, or you can find us on YouTube at LawNextPR. And you can also get all the episodes in the LawNext Legal Tech directory under the Resources tab. This is Bob Ambrogi. Thanks for joining us today.